You're going with the phone now too, Ken? You got the no.
Makes it a lot easier. This is also a picture.
Oh, y'all are fine, man.
When you not taking pictures, so you don't have an overall.
Hey, I got a new haircut, so yeah, get that pic on there. We ready? All right, thank y'all for being here. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone here and watching and listening. This is a good week of the year. We don't have any classes in session, so it's football and eating, and so especially for the big guys, this is a good week for them. Let's recap Kansas State quickly. After going back and watching the film, and they're a really good football team. Felt like that going in, felt like it during it, watching it. So a lot of credit to them. They're playing well in all three phases right now, kind of peaking at the right time. I thought we competed, played hard, just didn't execute. Just didn't execute very well. Really an odd game in the first half. Kind of hit on all three phases. Special teams was probably the most disappointing. We've played really, really solid all year on special teams, and then we struggled on our PAT and field goal unit. 2 missed PATs, a missed field goal. And I can't ever remember really struggling that bad. And what makes it even more kind of complexing is our snapper's really good. I would argue he's one of the best snappers in the country. And he's probably done his job as good or better than anybody on our team, Austin Brinkman. And then Casey hadn't missed a kick all year. And so both of them are really good players and played at a high level. So I think that was more of a fluke than anything alarming, but it was at the wrong time. And so and then our kickoff coverage didn't rise to the challenge. I think they have the best kickoff return unit in our league, and Knowles does a really nice job. And they blocked us well, and I felt like that had been a strength going back to the Towson miscue. So that was disappointing. Then offensively, we did some real positive things. We ran the ball better than most teams have ran the ball against them. We had a bunch of explosive plays in the first half. But at the end of the day, you can't turn it over. 14 points off turnovers for them. And then we had 2 critical drives where I thought, if we could have produced points, the game could have potentially been different. The drive at the end of the half, we went a quick 3 and out, and we missed some layups, really, that could have extended the drive. And then we go 9 minutes to open the second half. So back-to-back drives there. We go 9 minutes, overcome several penalties, and then get no points out of it. And I thought those were kind of critical turning points in the game. And then defensively, we started really slow, especially up front. You see the explosive pass plays, but up front is where we really had the advantage. And you saw that in the second half when we won a bunch of one-on-ones. But we started slow up front. Too many explosives. Couldn't get off the field on third down. And I'm proud of those guys because I thought defensively came back and played a really good half of football, but it's too late. And really what it came down to is fundamentals and execution. We played better fundamentally, and we executed better in the second half. So that's kind of the recap on them. Going to Oklahoma State, obviously on the road. Early kick, so 11 a.m. Got to get our guys kind of ready for that. It's our first 11 a.m. kick of the year. And they're experiencing some adversity too. They've had some adversity there in the second half of the season. I think they were ranked as high as number 6. They've had a lot of injuries. But it's a group that plays a whole lot better at home. And so I think they've got a winning streak, maybe back to 2019 at home. Kind of look at them kind of by phase. On special teams, what really sticks out to you is their kickoff and their kickoff return units are 2 of the better units in our league. And the kicker's been excellent. He really has. He's been excellent. Their starting punter, the Australian, got hurt. They've got another guy in there that's really booming the ball. They've had some protection issues on that unit, but and then Presley, as both a kickoff returner and as a punt returner, is talented, and he's their leading receiver, and he does a nice job in the return. Offensively, it's the same system they've been running for a long time. You're going to see the same plays. They're going to play fast. They want to establish the run. I think as Spencer Sanders goes, they go. And he's been banged up a little bit. Didn't play his best game last week, but I fully expect him to bounce back. I thought he played probably as well as I've seen him play early in the year. And they were rolling offensively. And they've got several talented skill guys. They've had some injuries up front, but their skill guys are talented like they always have. Defensively, they're multiple. Very similar to how they played last year. They've had some injuries up front, had some transfers in the secondary, but a lot of different fronts. And I think it starts up front for them. I think Martin, who was a huge factor in the game versus us last year, and then Oliver is one of the best pass rushers in our league. So I think they're really talented up front. The linebacker, Mason Cobb, is kind of filling Rodriguez's role, and he's their leading tackler, gets downhill, so tough versus the run. And they're going to pressure. They're going to pressure and play man coverage. I think that we've got to be prepared for that. And then just as a wrap, this is our last game, and I mean we don't like it, but it is what it is. And I think this week's about gratitude and a lot of different things, and we're thankful for the opportunity to finish the season on the right note. This is the last week that this team will be together, and we'll make it a good week and a fun week for the guys, and I fully expect us to go out and play really hard and give ourselves a chance to win. I know y'all are going to want to ask a lot of questions about next week, and here's the way I'm dealing with our players. I'm pretty upfront, pretty direct with them, is we'll deal with that when it happens. All right, whatever comes is we'll deal with it, and we'll deal with it head on. But right now it's about Oklahoma State and giving our guys the best chance and the best opportunity to go win the game. And I think you have to deal with it that way. And I've been talking about them for about the last 3 weeks is, hey, be where your feet are. And next week's a big week in a lot of different ways, but you can't do anything about it. You finish, and I think how you finish says a lot about who you are as an individual. And so we fully expect as a staff and as a football team individually and collectively to finish in the right manner. And so with that, Greg, start us off there.
So now that you've seen the film with Garrett, his thoughts, and is the quarterback job this week up in the air? Or
no, Garrett's going to start. Yeah, Garrett's going to start. I think there were some really good things he did, and I think there's some stuff he's got to get better. The interceptions, you don't want to turn the ball over, right? But as a quarterback, you're going to have that some. And one of them, well, really on both of them, he's got to be better with his eyes. I think he's got to get his eyes in windows better. And then I think the biggest improvement from last week to this week is he's got to take the layups. He's always looking for the big play, and you got to take the easy ones. And we didn't do as good a job of taking some of the easy things that Kansas State was giving us last week.
Graham mentioned Rogue with Garrett. As a coach, how do you form a plan around Rogue?
It's a balance. So I think it's sometimes, and I think this is for a lot of us, right, is our greatest strengths, our greatest weaknesses, right? And so one of his biggest strengths is his ability to kind of be impromptu and kind of make a play. And he wants to make the big play all the time. And he does that. He threw a vertical route to Sam versus one high, which I promise you that's not what we teach. But it was a phenomenal throw, and it went for 70 yards, right? And so, we caught a similar play, and he's just assuming he's going to get that same look. Well, they leave Bryce uncovered. He doesn't throw it to Bryce,
On that one pass, it looked like the K-State defender was shocked he threw it.
Yeah, he probably was. But it was a long touchdown. It was a great throw. And so, I think some of it is as a coach, like Graham and I have to be comfortable with a little bit of unknown, and there's going to be a little bit of unknown. And there's going to be some times where he makes some really bad or really good plays, and there's going to be some where he makes some bad decisions. What we got to do is continue to coach him where he has fewer and fewer bad decisions. And I think the biggest learning point for him, like I told Greg, is like every play is not going to be a 70-yard touchdown. Every play is not going to be, a 40-yard run where you pull it down and run. Like, it's okay to throw the hitch and let Bryce get 15 or 12. Those are fine. Those are good plays. You stack those and you got a chance to go score touchdowns. Sometimes it's better just throw the ball away. Sometimes it's better just to dive rather than you're going to lose those battles versus linebackers in our league. You're not going to run them over very often. But it's like I tell my 14-year-old daughter, some lessons are hard. Like.
Is there a plan to involve Nico as well? Or
yeah, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, we're going to talk about it as we go. I think not just Nico, but a lot of younger players. I think this is like for the outside people, like this is a really tough week for young football players. So the season's long. This is the first major holiday. They haven't been at home. And so we're allowed to, one game in our league, travel more players. So we're going to travel more players, and we're going to be intentional about getting some guys that we want a red shirt, that we're going to red shirt, but have games. We're going to be intentional about getting them in, special teams, offense, and defense.
Paulie Collins has 4 games. I'm assuming he's redshirting, right?
Yeah, he is. He's been injured, but that's the reason he hasn't played. Like, we would have played him if he'd been healthy, but he's been out with an injury. He's kind of borderline if he could play or not, but we're making an executive decision not to.
This is the first time you played this Oklahoma State defense with a not a stationary quarterback. Does that help you with protections and so forth to have a quarterback that can move around and extend plays a little bit?
Well, it's definitely helped because they're good up front and they've got some matchup issues, and so last year we started off the game pretty well versus those guys, and then we just didn't execute, and then they got after us in some protection things. Once we were behind. It held 10-3 for a long time. Then it got to 17-3. We had to try to get back in, and we just didn't do a very good job then. But it's going to help because we're going to lose some. We're going to lose some battles versus some of those guys. Now you want to win your share, and we will win our share. Another side note too. I thought Wyatt Milam. I should have said this in the opening. I thought. Against a kid that's going to be a first-round draft pick according to the, pre-draft stuff. I thought Wyatt Milam did really well last week against. Yes, yeah, I thought he played at a really high level, and I should have said that in the opening. But he played at a really high level. But yeah, I think it's going to be a benefit.
Neal, all 4 running backs you've used this year have done well. What do you attribute that to? Is that Chad? Is that the offensive line? Or the combination?
I think it's a combination. Offensive line wise, I think when you all asked me after the game, outside of the Iowa State game and one other game, like our O-line's played at a good level. Like we've got one of the better offensive lines in our league. If you look at some of our rushing marks versus some of the other, like we're up there against some of the better people outside Iowa State with being able to run the ball versus our better defenses, which is kind of our goal coming into the year. And I think we got 3 that are playing at a really high level, in Doug and Zach and Wyatt, like I just talked about. So I think that's part of it. I think that Palende and Traylon Davis are quietly having really good years blocking. And I think that they're always kind of undervalued, but they're a big piece of it. I think that and I think Chad does a really good job coaching those guys. And how we read some of our run plays, I think that he gives them a chance. And any room you got competition, you tend to get better. And that's a room that has a lot of competition. And you're seeing Jalen Anderson, and I've studied up here for 2 years and talked about how talented he is. He just kind of got to put it together. And now you're seeing that. I think he had almost 9 yards of carry last week, and he is talented. He is talented, and I think he'll get some more work this week, and I'm excited kind of about his growth potential.
The way that the tight end position is evolved, is it hard to get guys that you're just going to use them as blockers mostly?
Well, we like to throw it to him. Traylon, they actually caught some balls the other day. We'd like to throw them. We'd like to have more of a vertical. I think some of the guys maybe that are redshirting have that potential. It's hard to find. They're just really hard to find. Most of those guys are playing basketball. There's very limited, group of those guys, 6'4", 6'6", that, can run and are big enough and physical enough.
You mentioned this is a difficult week for some of the younger players. Mm-hmm. Across as a whole, is it tough to find motivation, eligibility at stake, or how does it kind of differ?
I think it's all how you look at it, really. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's how you look at it. So I always think back to, I get our guys to think back to, when you're a young kid, somebody said, hey, you're going to go play in front of, 55, 60,000. You're going to play on ESPN2, I think we're on. And you're going to play Power 5 football at the highest level. Like, you'd be pretty excited. So what's changed? Just because it's Thanksgiving week and, it's late in the year, does that make it change? I think it is what you make out of it, so like that's my approach. Is it's an opportunity, and every time you have an opportunity to put video out there and increase your value as a player, then you need to do it. And I think just finishing says a lot about who you are and how you proceed. And y'all aren't here, y'all don't care anything about me waxing on poetically about football and its value, but I think there is some value in what you can learn and just finishing and how you and finishing what you start.
Do you bring back 2019?
No, we won't. We've But I think I think that was a good example of a group that did. Now, it's a really tough game, and then came back and went on the road and won. And a lot of those guys were on the team. I hadn't really thought about it. I may use it toward the end of the week, but I think that I don't think we'll have a problem with our guys playing. I fully expect them to practice well today. We've shortened practices over the last couple of weeks, and they're not overly physical because of our depth issues. So I fully expect our guys to run around, and we'll have a good product out there on Saturday.
I know it's something that maybe you haven't fully evaluated yet, and it might be hard to just pick one thing, but is there something this year that maybe you're the most disappointed by, outside of the record, obviously, but something in general that you're the most disappointed by? Because it wasn't the year that anybody.
No, I think that's a fair, Mike. I think that's it'd probably be premature for me to really, because I haven't had a chance to really sit down and look at the thing. When you're in the midst of it, man, you're trying to make each day a little better. But there's that. We haven't been as consistent offensively. I think that, we have the potential to really move the ball and score versus anybody that we've played, and we've been a little inconsistent in that. At times we've been really good. Defensively we had a really struggle defending the pass, giving up explosive plays. Those two things right off the start. But it'd be premature for me to, without having a chance to kind of reflect.
At the end of any season, you self-evaluate what went on. Is it hard to be honest there? And by that I mean, you can look at this season and say you lost a couple of close games, you had injuries, you had a couple of defections that you weren't expecting and weren't building for, and say those are reasons, or are they excuses? And by the same token, look at the record and say it's not the record you want.
I think it's. I don't think you can. I think you can rationalize anything in your life. You know what I mean? And so I think you're really unfair to yourself if you try to rationalize things. At the end of the day, we've had some chances to win some games. We didn't win them. And the margin for error in this league is really, really small. And I don't care what team you're at. TCU's in the top 4 in the country. What I rank them this week, Mike? I rank them 2 or 3. Yeah, and so, but they've had a lot of close games, and I think you'd ask Coach Dykes and he'd tell you the same. The margin for error is really, really small. And so I don't try to rationalize it, and at the same time, I haven't had a chance to really self-evaluate or reflect on the entirety of the season yet. There's going to be a time and place for that. But when that happens, I won't rationalize, I won't make excuses. It's about what went wrong, what went right, where we're really missing out, what we got to do to get better.
Your favorite Thanksgiving/football moment, coach, player, kid?
Yeah, let's see. That's a good one. I think, we've talked about the 19. I thought that was a big week. Just, I thought it said a lot about those guys and that came back and competed. You look back at that TCU team, they had a bunch of draft picks, to go, and they were fighting bowl eligibility at the time. So to go on the road and win that game, that was from a football perspective. It's funny, as a coach, you always remember losses. So even as a player, we lost the state semifinals my junior year, and on Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, I still remember that. I got scars. Played at Breathitt County, Eastern Kentucky. A lot of West Virginians will know where Breathitt County is. But I got tackled on a cleat cleaner, and so I got all these scars from a cleat cleaner. Yeah, that's a day after Thanksgiving. Food, okay, so different food. This is my mom, which it comes from my grandmother's recipe, makes squash casserole. So that's a little bit of a different dish, but I'm a big fan.
That's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Neal, did you figure out what went wrong for Casey? Was it a similar thing, or was it different each time?
You'd have to ask him, really. So, I don't pretend to coach the kickers, right? I haven't kicked, so I'm real careful about what I say. All I know is whatever he's been doing has worked to that point. I think he was perfect on field goals and PATs for the season. he changed holders. I think that's anytime there's some change there because Grayson's out with an injury. So Grayson's been his holder, for 2 years. And so I think any little change up like that maybe has an effect. And his swing didn't look the same for whatever reason. But you'd have to ask him. But I do fully expect he's a kid that I think, and you may even ask this after the game when he made the game winner versus Oklahoma, he really stays pretty level-headed. He's down about that, but it's not something that's going to affect him going into Oklahoma State.
Did you get any explanation on any one of the number of officiating?
So I'm waiting. I'm waiting on that. I should talk to Greg today probably. But I talked to Scott Draper who's the football liaison for the Big 12. But I'm waiting I think he and Greg are going to talk and get back to me. I still strongly disagree. I don't think that was handled right. Center judge shouldn't have been sent in on the 4th and 1. You go back and watch the TV copy. We'd have clearly gotten it. They weren't lined up. If they let us snap it when they should have snapped it. Retrospect, probably should have called timeout once the center judge, but it really happened so fast. And then there was a litany of calls that I turned in. Probably doesn't do me any favors to talk about it, but wasn't real fired up.
Do you think it's time for 70 on the travel roster to go to 72, 75? Not like 90.
Yeah, I don't know why we wouldn't. The only thing that you run into is seats on your charter. But, I mean, the money's not an issue, right? It's not. It's seats on the charter is where you run into some issues. But I don't know why you wouldn't. But everything right now is done for all levels. So that's it can go conference to conference, but it's also done at a Division I level. Makes sense to me.
And then the portal opening date, just the whole NIL thing, those are dynamics you're wrestling all the time now, and they evolve.
To put it mildly.
You can't do anything until they have a conversation. Certainly people can have conversations with them, so you almost have to be ready.
You got to be ready. So what we'll do next week is, there's a lot of things that have to be decided, but what we'll do is you try to get in front of it. There's the new dead period where the portal opens. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Thursday or Friday? I can't remember. But there's a period there where it's dead recruiting, so your coaches can't leave campus, and that dead period is in there so you can have conversations with your players. And so that's our intention, and it is. It's I'm quite sure that our best players are, and the guys that we have to put a premium on retaining. Yeah, they're going to have options, and I can get up here and gripe and complain about it, but. That's the world we live in.
Do you have any opinions on, in terms of now there being a dead period versus not, and people bring up windows?
Yeah, the windows, you got to have the windows. That's a positive change. I think the dead period is very positive because you're not, by staying here and handling your players and having conversations with your players, one-on-ones with your players, their families, et cetera, you don't feel like you're missing out on any other part of recruiting because nobody else can do it, So I think those are all positives. We just got to get, the portal windows. We've got that fixed. We just got to. There's the NIL it's never going away, and I'm not one that says it needs to go away, right? I think really you look at it, college athletics missed the boat, like. If we shared revenue a long time ago, this wouldn't be an issue, right? But we didn't, and so now we're paying the price on really bad decisions, and it comes down to greed, and wanting to keep all the money, and that's kind of where we're at. But it has to be, and it's only going to be done from a federal regulation standpoint, but it needs to be looked at federally and where everybody's playing on equal ground.
You expect Prather to go this week?
Yeah, I do. He'll light practice today. He'll be full practice tomorrow as long as everything checks out. He's in the, he's got a protocol he's got to follow, but he's going to do a little bit of work today, tomorrow, and then he's on track to play on Saturday. Yes.
How about Tony?
Tony, he's going to play. That's just an irritating injury. At a different position, you can handle it, but he's got to use that, and he is getting better. He is getting better, but it's hurt him from a production standpoint. He wouldn't say that. I'll say that for him, though. It's hurt him from a production standpoint.
Do you have any senior players that are going to bypass the game?
Nah, not that I realize. Not that I recognize. No.
Okay, Coach Brown, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.